So, hello everyone. We have Jesse Jong here. So glad for you to join us here. Jesse is an attorney and also a realtor.
Hi, Rob.
And yeah, how you doing?
Good.
He's
Thanks for
based
having
out of San Jose.
Yep.
And tell
Down.
everyone a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey, everyone. My name's Jesse. So I've been an attorney for about 11 years now, going on 12, and I've recently gotten barred in DC, so that means that I have a lot more ability to file for mandamus actions and things that can help people move visas along a little bit faster. And I've been doing immigration for about 7 years of my 11 years. Prior to that, I did litigation, so I know a little bit about, quite a bit about using the legal system to our advantage. Um, I guess we can segue into.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, you have a lot of insights that most people will never get. That's why you're going to be contributing great value to the group and we really appreciate that. So today's title, the topic is how to use real estate investment to get a green card.
Okay,
So you want to tell everybody what is an EB-5 visa?
sure. So a EB-5 visa, it's EB means employment based. And so the EB-5, it's an employment based visa, but it's also a lot of people think of it as an investor's visa because the requirements for this visa is kind of a pretty big investment, unlike the E2 or some other business visas where you don't even have to invest. Um,
But what are the current standards? You mentioned high. So what are the standards for the EB-5?
So the EB-5, the minimum investment, and this is an investment in what they call a target employment area. That means like the employment rate in that area has to be 150% unemployment rate or above. And so some of the big cities would not qualify for this. You'd have to invest at least 800,000 um, money that is at risk. So that means like you can't invest with an agreement to get paid back. I mean, of course, most people get paid back through their investment anyway, but there cannot be a direct agreement to that. And that 800,000 for it will go up to 1,050,000 if you were to invest in an area that was not a targeted employment area. So between 800,000 or 1,050,000.
Oh, that's fascinating. So areas that are kind of down on their luck requires less capital, 800,000 US.
Yeah.
Areas that are more developed and they're doing well on the metrics, unemployment metrics, you have to put more money in, almost $200,000 more, right?
Yeah, a little bit more than 200,000. It's $250,000 more.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So
That's
like, yeah,
quite a difference.
it's a big difference, but also in addition to investing, you also have to create 10 jobs. 10 full-time jobs have to be created. And so during the time that you're investing and you're filing for your visa and you're getting the visa, and this visa is pretty special because it does lead to a green card in 2 years. And so during this time, the investment has to be active. It has to continue to go. If the investment falls through before you get your green card, well, unfortunately, they'll deny the case. So it's really important to invest in something safe. Real estate, especially in at least our area in California, tends to be pretty safe.
Well, it's my understanding that these are usually development projects, right?
That's correct.
Where complexes are being built or office buildings are being built.
Yeah,
So
that's
you said it has to create 10 jobs, right?
correct. So each person who's investing has to be attributed 10 full-time jobs. So that's why like a pooling agreement, it starts to get very complicated because you have to make sure that each person's money is allocated in a way that they're getting the benefit.
Okay, so if four people pull together, let's just say round number, $4 million. Can they get a loan on top of that? Or does it have to be just a cash investment?
No, so how it works is they would normally work with like a developer who uses that money for the loan. Like
Oh, I
they're
see.
yeah. So um they can use part of the money to get more money, like but for the most part, because if you use part of your money to get more money, then that means that that amount of money is not creating jobs, right?
I
And
see.
so you're at like a less low position at that time, right? Because then you spent like 200,000 or 300,000 each person just to go get more money that that amount didn't get any jobs for, right?
Okay, so if four people pull together the 4 million, the developer uses that to get their construction loans. 40 jobs, full-time jobs must be created for the duration of that 2-year period.
Yes, it just depends. So, for a long time, this program was created in 1990, and so many people filed for it. Unfortunately, a lot of people there they came from mainland China, and they filed for this, and there's a huge backlog. There's really, if you look at the visa categories, there's really only two categories. One's mainland China, and the other one's everyone else.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
the people from China, they're like they're at like a 10 to 15 year backlog. So at this time, there's very few Chinese investors that can move anywhere. And a huge litigation just came down actually in the last month on like August 29th, I believe. Um, a, a new settlement, a lawsuit with the USCIS. It changed the rules a little bit, and now they have these set asides. The set asides, they're not for anyone specifically. So new investors who qualify for these set asides, they can actually not be backlogged. So
I
that's
see. I see.
good for people. Yeah.
So what's the failure and success rate for an applicant besides being backlogged? Let's say somebody's actually in the process. Do you have any data on that?
So yeah. So there's been about over the years, every year is different, obviously, but every year, let's say about 8 to 10,000 people apply, and about 800 people get approved. So it's about 10% or less.
Oh, wow. But then
Yeah,
how many actually get all the way through the 2 years meeting all the qualifications?
correct. So that, of course, we know that investments and business it's pretty difficult. At least 50% of the businesses fail in the first year, right?
Yeah,
And so, I mean, for most people to maintain these businesses for it's not just 2 years because it's just 2 years for the period of time that you're supposed to keep it open for. There's additional processing time that you have to keep the whole development open for, creating those jobs and maintaining those jobs. So, like I said, the Chinese investors, they're looking at like 10, 15 year wait. And so during that time, they have to keep that open. That's extremely difficult, right? Especially if you're in a development where you're done with the development and now you have to create something else to maintain those jobs. A lot of times there have been people create like um, luxury real estate developments where they stay on. It's like a all-inclusive type of thing where they're like a ski resort or a country club or something like that. So that they can continue to maintain those 10 jobs and still get their investment paid off.
I see. So you said that the bulk of the applications are from mainland China, right? Now, what's the
The-
number? Do you know what the number two ranking is on
yeah,
applications? Oh, Vietnam.
yeah,
Okay, so that's outside applications. How about is there any influence as to what state in the United States they're applying from as far as the project location? Does that matter at all?
so there are um there's basically two ways to do this. Number one would be a regional center. Regional centers, they tend to be like what you're talking about, a polling situation, but they have like hundreds of clients. And so these regional centers, unfortunately, they're ripe for fraud, but because people create them without following through on the all the accounting involved, or the project fails and the investor loses all their money, and when they lose their money, they also can't qualify for the EB-5. So um, while the regional centers are they're they're very enticing, but a lot of times they're not the best place to go. They also have coverage areas. Each regional center has different coverage areas, and they have to apply for those.
But is there any, if California is more difficult to get an EB-5, would a state like
Sure.
Colorado or Utah be easier? Is there any stats on that?
So there's a couple regional centers, we'll call them RCs, like okay. um they're based in Utah, and also I think there's a couple in Missouri as well. It's basically anywhere that is of low population. Lower population means that their unemployment rate will be a little bit higher.
Okay. So Jesse, you're an expert. If someone comes to you today or tomorrow and they say, I want to bring in my uncle, what's the best way? He wants a green card. What's the best way to do it?
Well, so I mean, if the uncle is uncle that is relatively well off, that has these business funds, then the EB-5 is the best way to do that. Of course, there are other EB visas, and it really depends on a case by case basis. If that uncle is very skilled or highly educated, or they're a major player in their field, there's other EB visas that could help them. And most of these EB visas, they can lead to a green card. It's kind of like the H-1B from back in the day.
It sounds like it's just that the United States wants people in here that are going to add value. Is that what it is?
Yeah, pretty much. The United States, I think that's always been the case where they're trying to get other countries to come to the US and bring their funds, bring their knowledge, stay in the US, and provide that service. So it's mostly job creation for the EB-5s.
Interesting. So they're coming in with talent, which is the H1, right? Or companies.
There's extraordinary ability, which is the EB-1. There's skilled but like not necessarily extraordinary ability, which is like kind of professors or other people who are able to teach their skills. That's the EB-2 and the
Okay.
EB. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And there's also a lower bar. It's called the E2 visa, but the E2 visa just depends on whether or not the US has a treaty with that country.
Oh, I
And then
see.
they can also come and um, invest a certain amount of money. There's no minimum threshold, but for the most part, when we file these things, a 200K investment is pretty much the average.
I see. Okay, maybe
Yeah.
we can dive into that E2 on our next session.
Okay. Sounds good.
So, any final thoughts and how can people get a hold of you?
Final thoughts. Well, the in, in, investing is a great way of getting into the U.S. and staying in the U.S. and hopefully becoming a permanent resident. It's by far not the easiest way, but if you don't have any immediate relatives in the US, immediate relatives being like a spouse or a child who's over 21, um, or a brother and sister, but these things are they take a quite a long time. So, um, the investment visa is one of the best ways. Yeah.
And how can people get a hold of you?
They can reach me at my law office email. It's jesse@lawjong.com. And They can find me on Facebook as well, Jesse Jong. And yeah, any other questions, feel free to let me know and I'm happy to answer.
I really appreciate you taking out your time on the weekend to help these people out. And if there's any other questions, we'll be sure to follow up with them in the chat.
Okay,
You're watching this, everyone, you're watching this on the replay. We had some technical difficulties. Couldn't stream this one, but we'll definitely still get your questions answered. Just put them in the chat. All right, that's all until the next live. See you guys later.
thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Jesse.